adventurers. Welcome to Let's Just Go podcast. I'm Kayla, and today I'm going to talk a little bit about how to travel on a budget. Or if you're like me, it's not so much about having a budget as it is budgeting. So making sure that you are aware of how much money you're going to spend, how much everything is going to cost you, and that you don't have surprises on your trip. Because you will run into things that cost money that you aren't expecting, and it's good to be able to plan for those types of things. So this is an episode that really will pertain to any type of traveling that you're doing, but I'm also going to have some focus points on different things that I book a lot for my clients. So first and foremost, knowing your budget. Single most important thing about traveling. I recognize that it can be hard to know how much you should be expecting to pay for something. And I will tell you that most of my clients used to come to me and say, I want to go to Disneyland in January. Can you get me a quote? And I used to be like, yeah, sure, okay. And then I realized as time went on that not everyone has the same idea in terms of a budget. And so you might say to me, hey, Kayla, I want to go somewhere cheap. Or I want to travel and spend the least amount of money possible. And I may say, okay, here's a Motel 6 for you. But that's not what you meant when you said that you wanted to travel on a budget. Or you may say, hey, I'm okay with spending a little bit more money. And then I put you somewhere and you're like, whoa, that's way too expensive. What are you doing? So it's good to have a general idea of how much you're looking to spend. To give you a prime example of this, I'm looking into going to Hershey Park next weekend because I have a ticket that I need to use and it's Halloween time and I thought that would be really fun. And I just want to spend one night out there. And I went to Hershey in August and the price that I paid wasn't terrible. It was summertime rates, but it was like end of summer. So it wasn't as expensive as it would be in like July. I could not find availability in Hershey. And what I did find available was $500 a night for a Courtyard by Marriott. So it's really important to know what you're getting yourself into before you commit to something. And thankfully in this situation, the very first thing I was doing was looking at the price of hotels before I made any other plans. I already have the tickets to use for Hershey, so that part's not as important. I have until December to use them, so that's fine. I have more time. But if you're wanting to do something like go on a trip to Disneyland or Walt Disney World and you find a really good price for flights and impulsively buy them, and then realize that the rest of the trip is going to cost you a lot more than you thought it was going to, you may be struggling a little bit. So I like to give homework to my clients of making sure that they know two things. One, the dates that they want to travel, the specific dates, not just I think I want to go sometime in the spring, but like give actual dates. And two, what is that general budget looking like? Because you may be the kind of person that doesn't care about the hotel you stay in, but you want to eat really good food the time you're on your trip. So those are important things to keep in mind. You want to know what's a non-negotiable for you and what you're willing to potentially miss out on, if you will. So for me, I hate having late night flights. If I don't have to, I would love to not have a late night flight. I also don't want like a 5 a.m. flight. So a non-negotiable for me is that flight time. I would rather pay more money to be on a flight that leaves a little bit later in the morning than to be on that very first flight of the day. I still end up booking those flights the very first part of the day because usually they're the cheapest flight and I'm just really excited to get where I'm going. So that's something that you need to keep in mind. If there is a very specific thing that you need in your accommodations, let's say that you have a child that is obsessed with swimming pools and you need to have a pool at the hotel that you stay at, that's a good non-negotiable to make sure that you're factoring in that you may pay a little bit more if you want to be in a place that has a pool. There are going to be prices of things that you may not think about. So if you're renting a car, you may want to opt to have additional insurance on that car, and that may cost you an extra bit that you weren't expecting. If you're not renting a car and you're wanting to rely on public transportation wherever you're going, you may need to take a taxi or a ride share somewhere at some point, and that's going to have an additional cost. You may end up seeing a really fun restaurant that you want to dine at, and you decide that you're wanting to eat there, but it's more money than you were expecting to spend. Like, these are all things to keep in mind when you're looking into traveling. So when it comes to finding a good price on something, I would say working with a travel advisor is going to be your best bet. Obviously, we aren't always here to find you the cheapest thing, but we're here to find you the best value for your own personal situation. So if someone comes to me and they say, I want to go to Mexico for as cheap as I possibly can, I'm probably not going to be the best person for them. But if they come to me and they say, hey, I have $5,000 that I want to spend going to Cancun for these specific dates, this is a thing that's really important to me, I can definitely help them in finding a good option. If you're looking at flights and you want to know if the price that you're paying for flights is a good price or not, Google Flights is without a doubt my favorite thing to use to find those flights. So when you go on to Google Flights, you put in your destination or your departure and your destination and the dates, and you can actually do it by calendar view. So you can look and see if I want to take a 7-day trip in October, and then you can see how much they would, like what the cheapest price is on those days. You can filter things by like, you want a nonstop, you want a specific departure time or arrival time, you don't want to fly certain airlines. Like, there's all sorts of filters that you can put in. And then the really cool thing about Google Flights is that it will tell you, is this price typical? Is this price high? Is this a good deal? And then you can also turn on notifications and get emailed whenever those flight prices change. So I like to do that for my own trips that I have that are a ways out, just to make sure that I'm keeping up with it. And if I see it dip down a lot, I'm going to snag it up as quickly as I can. But if you're not really like set on dates and it's still a ways out and you just want to sort of see what's available and if there's specific days that are going to be cheaper to travel than others, I would definitely suggest using that calendar in Google Flights. You know, make the adjustments and see what makes the most sense for you. Or if there are multiple airports that you can fly into, look at that. So in Seattle, you've got SeaTac and you've got Everett. In New York City, you've got about 1 million options. In DC, you've got a couple of options. Out here on the East Coast, it's actually sometimes cheaper to take the train to a different city and then fly out of that airport. So that's something else to keep in mind. If you're trying to get to a specific destination, it may make sense to do something like that. I know that for me, when I lived in Tacoma, I would sometimes fly out of Portland instead of Seattle because of the fact that it would be significantly cheaper. And if there are multiple people flying, it was cheaper to make the drive to Portland than it was to fly out of SeaTac. So flights are something that if you're willing to compromise, you can usually get a pretty good deal. But if you know that you're going to have a checked bag, you know that you need to have very specific seats, maybe you need some other sort of accommodation that's going to cost you an extra amount of money, then I would say flights are going to be a little more difficult for you in terms of saving. But I recently actually purchased the Frontier Go Wild Pass for myself because I anticipate traveling a lot over the next year domestically. And I want to be able to just on a whim go somewhere. I will say there are a lot of caveats with the Go Wild Pass. I haven't actually used it yet. I just purchased it a few weeks ago, but I will be doing a podcast episode about it once I have my review. So stay tuned for that. But flights can be a pain in the ass, plain and simple. That being said, if it's a short flight, the cheap flight might be the best option. I know for me, I'm like, I'll take Frontier on a 2-hour flight. Taking Frontier on a 6-hour flight, maybe not, because it does feel like the public bus in the sky. So that's just something to keep in mind. Other things to keep in mind is, like I said, what's a non-negotiable for you? For me, I want to eat all the good food. So I I budget to make sure that I have money for food and that I'm able to eat whatever I want to eat whenever I want to eat it. For some people, they would much rather have a crock pot in their hotel room. There are people who do that at Disney. Listen, I'm not judging. It's just, it could never be me. So there are people who will do that, or they'll do a grocery run on their way from the airport to their destination and get things for breakfast. Maybe you're going to get your own coffee making so that you're not spending money on coffee every morning. Those types of things can save you a lot of money. If you're going someplace like Disneyland, there's actually a ton of affordable places off property, not only to stay at like non-Disney accommodations, but also places to go get something to eat. Like there's an IHOP, there's a McDonald's, there's a Denny's, there's convenience stores, there's a Walgreens and a Rite Aid. Like, oh, nope, not Rite Aid, CVS, RIP Rite Aid. So there's a lot of different places you can go if you're wanting to save money on something. And maybe your hotel room isn't that important to you. If you're going someplace like Disney, getting a fancy hotel is not necessarily what everyone wants. Maybe you're planning on rope drop to fireworks at Disney and you're really only going to be in your room to shower and go to bed. So staying at a less expensive hotel makes a lot of sense versus myself. I like to take breaks throughout the day. I know that I want to be able to go back to my hotel and feel comfortable and turn on my TV and just lay in bed and maybe take a nap. Like those are things that are important to me. Also, if there are experiences that you want to take, those can add up really quickly. I love doing a good food tour. Again, I love food. Food all the time. I travel for food. I work for food. You know, everything in my life revolves around food. So for me, I like to go, when I'm going to a new place, I like to do a food tour. I think they're really fun. They're a great way to explore the destination that you're in, learn more about the local culture. That being said, they can vary drastically in price. You can do a big group tour where you're getting a little small bite of something and you're walking everywhere, and that's going to be a lot cheaper than if you're doing a private full day tour with a vehicle involved. So those are things to keep in mind. Maybe you don't anticipate ever going back to a location and it's really important to you that you experience something there. So let's say you're going to Paris and seeing the Eiffel Tower is at the top of your list. You have to go to the top of the Eiffel Tower. Then it's probably going to be worth it to you to spend more money to have that experience versus saving the money just to see it from down on the street. Another thing to keep in mind is the time of year that you travel really does dictate how much you're going to spend. So taking it back to my example for wanting to go to Hershey Park, in the summertime, it wasn't nearly as expensive as it's going to be this month because of the fact that the park is only open on the weekends right now, and it's for their Halloween event specifically. So there's a lot more demand for the parks and for those hotels because of the fact that the park is open for less days. Shoulder season, which I did an episode about a few episodes back, is a great time to travel. You're going to pay less money for your flights, your hotels. Food is probably going to be the same price, but a lot of the experiences you're going to have are going to be less expensive, and it's not going to be as crowded, which I personally love. Shoulder season is my favorite time of year to travel. I love it so much. Obviously, this Hershey example is not a good one because this is shoulder season and it should not be $500 a night to stay at a Courtyard Marriott, but here we are. So keep in mind the time of year that you're traveling is really going to dictate how much you spend. So I'm trying to help my mom right now figure out travel plans for the holidays. And the closer you get to the beginning of December is the less that you're going to pay versus if you're getting closer to Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, New Year's Eve, New Year's Day, you're going to pay a lot more. There's going to be a premium because of the peak holiday travel. So if, let's say, you wanted to go to a theme park that was decorated for the holidays, but you didn't want to pay as much money and you didn't want to deal with as crazy of crowds, going before those holidays actually start is usually a really good idea. So if it's Halloween, going in August or September. If it's Christmas you're wanting to see, going between Thanksgiving and when winter break typically starts, so like the 20th-ish of December, those are going to be the less expensive times. Those are going to be the lower crowds, and you're still going to get to experience the thing that you're wanting to see, which is really great. The other thing is the further out you book is the less expensive something is going to be. So cruising is a prime example of this. When cruises start to fill up, the price goes up. So if you were to book a cruise the day it comes out, that is more than likely the lowest price that you are going to pay. When that ship starts to fill up, the price of those rooms are going to go up. So let's say you paid $100 the day it came out and now it's at 90% occupancy. You're not paying $100. You're going to be paying hundreds of dollars. So it's important to know that supply and demand is very, very important in factoring in what you're going to pay when you're traveling. And I think that a lot of people like to travel very last minute. Like it's like oh, hey, I had this idea. I'm going to go this place in 2 weeks. And that's great. And sometimes you can find a really good deal because last minute deals do exist out there. They're getting to be fewer and farther between. So ideally, I would say at least 6 months prior to when you're wanting to travel, you should start booking things. So like I'm going to Italy for a wedding in the summer, and at the beginning of the year, I'm going to start looking at flights. I do already have accommodations booked because I'm going to a very small town for said wedding. But in terms of figuring out flights and then the rest of that trip, I'm going to start doing that in January for the summertime. So I know right now I'm a little too far out. There may not be full availability yet because some places don't have things out a year out. But as I get closer to January, I know that my odds are going to be higher of finding things and that the prices are going to be lower. So the final thing I want to just keep in mind is working with a travel advisor can definitely help you in these situations. We know the ins and outs of this industry. We've been doing it for a long time, most of us, or if we haven't, we know who to talk to that can help us figure out answers for things. Our job is to help you find a place to go that makes sense for you and makes sense for your group and that you have a realistic budget. You know, we're going to tell you if you say, I want to go to Disneyland and I only want to spend $500, I'm going to let you know that that's unrealistic. It's not going to happen. Let's reset. And you don't have to spend hours or days researching to figure out how to make a $500 budget work because at the end of the day, it's not going to. So when you work with a travel advisor, you really have someone in your court to make sure that you're getting the best experience that you can for the amount of money that you are willing to pay. And that may be that it's a matter of saying, well, maybe we don't do this trip this year and we keep saving and do it next year so that we can have the trip we want to have. Or it may be that you pivot and go somewhere else because you have a set budget that you're wanting to spend, but you can't afford to go that far. So for my clients, a lot of the times, they may think that they want to go to Walt Disney World, and then they see how much a flight from Seattle to Orlando is, and they say, never mind, I'm actually going to go to Disneyland because a trip to Disneyland is much cheaper of a flight, and you can stay at a good neighbor hotel for a lot less money than you would be staying at a Disney-owned property. So when you work with travel advisors, we are able to save you time and money most of the time on your vacations. And I mean, obviously I'm biased, but I love helping people find these things. And it's really gratifying to me to hear how much my clients enjoy the trips that they go on after the fact, especially because of the fact that we're putting those personal touches on things as well. So if you're telling me, I'm a foodie like you, girl, well, now I'm going to tell you all the places that you need to eat while you're there. Those types of things. So keep in mind that travel advisors can be helpful. And a couple of money saving tips just at the end here. Make sure you pack a water bottle because most places are going to have somewhere that you can refill that water. If you're going to a country where you can't refill your water, like Mexico, where maybe the tap water is not the safest for you to drink, you should still bring one because you can still fill it up on your way out of the country. If you really are trying to save money, don't check a bag. Try to fit everything into a carry-on. You'd be surprised how much you can fit into the right carry-on. Just saying. Sign up for loyalty programs. So every airline has a loyalty program. Most hotel chains have a loyalty program. You can earn points that you can then use to redeem for hotel stays. You can use them on flights. You can use them for rental cars. I actually have a couple rental car programs that I'm a part of as well. If there's something if there's an aspect of your trip that you could book in multiple places, I guess, like if it's a chain of some sort, there's probably a loyalty program. Even Amtrak has a loyalty program. So keep all these things in mind. And when you're ready for your next trip, you know who to reach out to. And until next time, let's just go. How did that sound? Were you listening at all?
I wasn't.
How rude. He wasn't listening. What kind of podcast editor is he?